Hi, everyone. It's so nice to meet those of you that I don't know yet and to see your faces again for those of you I've been working with. I'm really excited just to be here and have a chance to share some of our advances in Panama and to be collaborating with the Earth Law Center in general. So thank you for being here to listen. So just to start, I wanted to share that by training, I am a marine biologist. Sorry, it's not changing. There we go. Okay. Is the slide changing for you guys? Okay. Yeah, so by training, I'm a marine biologist, a National Geographic explorer, and the founder of the Leatherback Project. And thanks to a nomination from Michelle, also part of the United Nations Harmony with Nature program. And as Michelle mentioned today, we just wanted to take some time to share the journey of advocating for the rights of nature in Panama, the current status of our projects there, and what we're hoping for the future as well. So to start, I wanted to share a little bit about why I was in Panama in the first place doing conservation work. So from October 2019 to March 2020, I was studying new sea turtle nesting and foraging grounds, evaluating the local threats facing sea turtles, and working to understand local community perspectives on conservation in the Pearl Islands archipelago in Panama through a National Geographic Society early career grant. And the Pearl Islands archipelago, for those of you who don't know, is a little island archipelago based in the Gulf of Panama in the Pacific, and it's made up of around 200 islands. So in 2019, after having an experience in legally defending my own labor rights, I wanted to apply that experience that I had learned to my experience in conservation. So I had begun to feel convinced that taking a rights-based approach to the conservation of nature could be that system change that we need to establish balance with nature internationally. I was in the field reading the book, The Rights of Nature, A Legal Revolution That Could Save the World in the field while I had no internet access, and was also simultaneously witnessing the many threats that the endangered species that I was studying were facing in Panama. So for example, this is a picture of an illegally harvested olive ridley sea turtle that was killed for its meat and eggs in the Pearl Islands. These are some photos that I was witnessing of the illegal use of sea turtle parts. So on the top left, we have hawksbill sea turtle meat. On the bottom left is a photo of a medicinal remedy made in La Esmeralda in the Pearl Islands with coconut oil and sea turtle meat oil that's used for lung health. And in the center bottom, we have green sea turtle meat. And on the right-hand side, there's an example of the highly sought after hawksbill sea turtle shell. This shell is used to create spurs for cockfighting, which are still illegally sold widely throughout Panama, and they're perpetuating the decline of this critically endangered species of sea turtle. So this is a picture of a nest excavation where I was documenting the hatching success of each nest and noting any obvious signs of death of the unhatched eggs. And having recently had this experience in defending my rights and then reading this book, working with sea turtles in the field and seeing their threats, I felt inspired by rights-based approaches to conservation and decided to pursue proposing a new rights of nature law in Panama. Despite not being a lawyer or a politician, it seemed that I literally had nothing to lose in trying. So in February of 2020, right before the pandemic started, myself and Felipe Baker, who is a local Indigenous community member and biology student, solicited 2 meetings with government officials to promote rights of nature concepts. First, on February 12th, we presented to the First Lady of Panama, Yasmin Cortizo, about rights of nature advances around the globe, ways that Panama could maybe be a leader in this movement, including presenting or supporting a UN resolution on the rights of nature, amending its constitution to include the rights of nature, or drafting a new law to recognize the rights of nature. And I use these inspiring facts and imagery, stories from the field, in addition to some potential legal verbiage to make our arguments as compelling and Panama specific as possible. The First Lady was charmed by this concept, and she vehemently expressed her support for our plans to propose the new rights of nature law to the Panamanian Parliament member, Juan Diego Vasquez. So the next day, on February 13th, we met with Senator Vasquez and presented the same types of concepts and advances from around the world. And him and his legal team were probably even more excited about proposing such an important nature conservation law in Panama. So this is the video of the actual law presentation on September 23rd, 2020. And I subsequently worked in 2020 with Vasquez's legal team to draft the new law, which is entitled in Spanish, por medio de la cual se reconocen los derechos de la naturaleza, las obligaciones de Estado relacionadas a estos derechos y se dictan otras disposiciones, or in English, by means of which the rights of nature are recognized, the state obligations related to these rights identified, and other provisions are dictated. So like I mentioned, this was presented on September 23rd in 2020, and the law was officially accepted by the Republic of Panama as an official proposal a few weeks later on October 14th. And this law requires the state and all persons, whether natural or legal, to respect and protect nature's rights. So some of the rights recognized in the law, the proposed law, include nature's right to exist, persist, and regenerate her life cycles, nature's right to timely and effective restoration, her right to the preservation of her water cycles. The law also establishes an extensive list of ecocentric principles like in dubio pro natura, meaning that when in doubt, one must act in favor of protecting nature, which will of course help with implementing this law in practice. Additional proposed principles include the higher interest of nature, in dubio pro aqua, and the restoration, prevention, and precaution principles. To defend the rights of nature, the law also authorizes all natural or legal persons to represent the interests of nature before the courts and authorities of Panama. And finally, the law establishes that the ancestral knowledge of indigenous peoples must be an integral part of interpreting and applying the rights of nature. And I think Constanza will go a bit more into detail on the legal part of the law in a bit. So in 2021, this past year, the law entered a debating stage with 3 different debate phases, including both public and private meetings. And several months before this debate phase began, I connected with Michelle after meeting her at the International Union for the Conservation of Nature's Youth Congress, where she was leading a panel. And in realizing that the ELC team are experts in the field of rights of nature, and recognizing the fact that myself and the legal team from Panama were just embarking on this mission for the first time, I reached out to Michelle to see if ELC would be interested in reviewing the proposed law and assisting in making it even stronger. So this was our Panama team, but I know, as Michelle mentioned, it was Michelle, Constanza, Carla, Rachel, and Grant, and probably a few others that participated in further developing the articles and adding relevant concepts from other successful rights of nature legislation to make the law as strong and as enforceable as possible. And it looks a lot different now than it did at first. The revisions were reviewed by Parliament member Vasquez and his legal team, and we were really excited that a majority of the changes made by ELC were actually presented and accepted by him personally during the first legal debate that was this past August in 2021. And I was so grateful to, become a partner of ELC and receive a small grant from the organization. So this law, the Law Project 471, it entered the first debate, as I mentioned, in August 2021 and successfully finished the first debating stage with the public on September 23rd. So the first debating stage is with the public, and then it entered the second and third debating phases, which are with various subsets of the senators. It's more closed and not available to the public. But the first set of debates included public participation, so we were able to do a few interventions. And then on October 25th, this past year, the new proposed law passed the third debate and has since been on the president's desk awaiting his signature. The most recent information that we have is that the president made a few changes to the law, the final version that we've seen and approved, but that he has in fact signed it. But this isn't public knowledge yet, but because this is, closed ELC meeting, I'm just going to share that. So we're a little concerned about what those changes might have been, but time will tell. Hopefully within the next few weeks, we'll actually be able to review the version that was approved. But if this law is passed in at least somewhat of the form that we last saw it in, it would be the first countrywide general, meaning all nature, legal action taken internationally since Bolivia added the rights of nature into their constitution in 2010. And as far as I know, I think it would be only the third countrywide general rights of nature action taken. So we're hoping that this will inspire other rights of nature legislation around the world. And in addition, I've solicited a meeting with the First Lady for this upcoming year to discuss the potential of including the rights of nature in Panama's constitution, depending, of course, on how the law is received in the end. Additionally, Panamanian Parliament member Gabriel Silva has presented a new law called Establishing the Conservation and Protection of Sea Turtles and Their Habitats in the Republic of Panama. And this proposed law is currently 9 debates into the first debating phase. And I think I was able to attend about 7 of those so far. And so while we were in Panama, working on the general rights of nature law, this opportunity came up that there's this new sea turtle conservation law. And we've been working together to include the rights of sea turtles. So we submitted a revision, I think in October, that includes the recognition of sea turtles as rights bearers. And Constanza and I were actually on the phone yesterday with the director of the Environmental Commission of Panama's Parliament to finalize our submission. It's not nearly as strong as we hoped for, but it's something. They took our 33-page submission and turned it into 1 sentence, literally. So we have this 1 sentence in there that does recognize sea turtles, the rights of sea turtles, but this will be debated this upcoming Wednesday. So it's still, in the works to see if we're actually going to be able to get the rights of sea turtles included in any sort of a way in this new law. And also it's important to note that experience has shown us that general rights of nature laws are more effective when parallel and subsequent laws include the same rights of nature rhetoric, which is why it's so important that we can include this in this new sea turtle law. And if accepted, this law would be the first of its kind, not only specific to ocean rights, but also as a comprehensive law to implement and enforce the rights of a non-human being or species group. Additionally, the Leatherback project, so the organization that I started, has identified a new foraging ground for the endangered green sea turtle and the critically endangered hawksbill sea turtle in front of Saboga Island, Isla del Rey, in the Pearl Islands archipelago in Panama. So this is an aerial view from a drone of what the reef habitat looks like. We are just beginning a mark and recapture study to better understand the size of the population occupying this reef habitat. And here's a picture of an adult hawksbill sea turtle from the Pearl Islands. And here's a picture of a green sea turtle. We use red light when working with the sea turtles at night to minimally disturb them. They don't see the red wavelengths of light the same way that we do. And I just wanted to share this video. It's a little hard to see, but it will give you an example of what the sea turtle conservation work is like in the Pearl Islands. We go out at night on a boat on the boat of a local community member to try and catch the turtles while they're sleeping. And after catching the turtles, we pull them into the boat to collect data on them. And so this is an example of a green sea turtle that I dove down to catch, but she was so feisty that I wasn't able to bring her to the surface to put her in the boat. It's hard to see, but you can see me diving down. And she gives me a run for my money. This is actually, it's pretty rare. Usually the sea turtles are asleep. So when you go down to catch them, they don't put up too much of a fight, but this one was definitely ready for me. So this is a short video of a juvenile critically endangered hawksbill turtle that we were about to work with in the Pearl Islands. And this one was actually brought to us by a fisherman, which is why this video is taken during the day. And I'm just showing a lot of this work about the sea turtle conservation because I think that it has facilitated a lot of the work with rights of nature, because the same contacts in the community and the government that that I'm making for the sea turtle conservation work I can use to cross over into rights of nature. So this was our boat team out in the Pearl Islands. We had 2 members from the local community, a videographer from the US, and then a member of the Navy from Panama, and the director of the Department of Ocean and Coast from the Ministry of the Environment of Panama out on the boat with us. So it was a pretty exciting field expedition this past. We went October, November, and December. And when possible, we transported the turtles to the beach in front of the community to allow for children to come and participate in the science. We put gloves on the children that were interested and allowed them to participate in as much of the work as possible. This is a picture of the kids helping us to gently clean the turtle's shell before tagging her with identification and satellite tags, and also collecting tissue samples. And here we're having a chat with a bunch of the kids about sea turtles while we're waiting for the epoxy on the back of that sea turtle shell to dry. And it was just such a cool experience because the excitement on the faces of the community members was just out of this world. And they're really excited to continue working to document this habitat that they didn't know was so special for turtles, and also protect it. And here's just a quick video of a 9-year-old boy helping me release one of the juvenile hawksbills. And in this video, we're on a Navy boat. So it was a cool collaboration between the government and the local community. And additionally, we're working with fishermen in the Pearl Islands to collect data on fisheries bycatch or accidental catch of sea turtles in the archipelago. So here we have 2 adult hawksbills that were successfully released alive by these 2 fishermen instead of killed for use in the illegal wildlife trade. And here's just 2 more examples of leatherback sea turtles, which are critically endangered in the East Pacific. And so these types of collaborations with local fishermen and community members are really vital to the overall conservation work and making sure that we involve all sectors in the opinions of the local communities in our work. So we've already tagged 20 individual turtles with identification tags in just a few weeks' time, in addition to deploying 2 satellite tags to map the sea turtles' movements throughout the island archipelago. By tagging these turtles, we can use mark and recapture methods to understand how big the population of turtles actually is in the Pearl Islands. And our goal is to collect enough data to propose the first community-managed national wildlife refuge in Pacific Panama, and include the rights of this reef and its inhabitants in the refuge proposal. So hopefully this will be a second example of a subsequent conservation law that includes parallel rights of nature rhetoric to reinforce the ecocentric paradigm shift in the country. And I just wanted to share this, that it's a quick preview of what one of the satellite tags has shown us so far. We put this one out in December, and you can see that the turtles' activities are concentrated around that island up north, which is Saboga Island, where we're hoping to propose the refuge. So hopefully we'll be able to put at least 5 to 10 more tags out on different sea turtle species to define the area that we're hoping to propose as the refuge down the line. Satellite tagging is expensive, but it's a vitally important part of many wide-scale international conservation endeavors. Because it demonstrates the connectivity between countries and existing marine protected areas. So for example, here from this figure from Miramar, we can see that whale sharks, which are the orange animal, and humpback whales in gray have already been satellite tagged and tracked, leaving the Gulf of Panama and heading to other protected areas in the East Pacific. So we already have that baseline data for 1 shark species and 1 cetacean species, but not for other sharks or sea turtles. But when we look at the existing conserved marine corridor between Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, and Ecuador in the East Pacific, we see that this vitally important island archipelago is actually excluded from the protection. So ideally, what we would like to do is work to satellite tag all 4 species of sea turtles and many other shark species found in the Pearl Islands to propose the extension of this protected marine corridor to include this important hotspot of marine biodiversity. And just last week, I was meeting with the Minister of the Environment of Ecuador about a fisheries bycatch reduction study using green LED lights in Ecuador. And just at the end of the meeting, for the last 10 minutes, I had the opportunity to pitch him the inclusion of the rights of nature into the treaty for this marine corridor, which I know is something Michelle has been eager to advance for a while now. And he was very excited about the idea and eager to collaborate on the proposal. So hopefully these are items that we'll be able to accomplish together within the next few years, is advancing the science and the protections. And I wanted to share again the details about the conservation work with turtles, because it is inevitably allowing me to make close contacts with other members of the government that I can later use for rights of nature. So this brings me to the last point that I wanted to make about the importance of scientists in the rights of nature movement. I think that scientists have unique firsthand perspectives when it comes to the conservation of nature, as we're often on the front lines of the ecological crisis, observing threats to wildlife and some of these declines firsthand. And many rights of nature laws must be data informed, or at least data inspired. And the destruction of habitat or decline of a species may be a catalyst to successfully propose new rights of nature legislation. So for this reason, I hope to collaborate with and empower other scientists to enter the political space, to bring their data sets to the political table and make sure that all of those long hours in the field have an actual tangible impact for the species that were being studied. And as we know, the rights of nature movement is ever growing, and I can only imagine what we could accomplish if conservation scientists join the discussion on a large scale. So our next steps for the work in Panama include, depending on the final results of the general law, we're hoping to organize some kind of a virtual celebration to commemorate this major advancement in Panama, if it is all that we're hoping it is. We're also looking to apply together for funds to accomplish various research goals that will allow us to inform future rights of nature policy proposals. So some of these things include, on the sea turtle side, the satellite tagging that I mentioned. Additionally, a project to derail potential commercial port construction near Panama and Colombia adjoining sea turtle nesting habitat. That's a whole presentation in and of itself. And then in terms of sharks, Rachel Bustamante, who I know is on this call, she's been working on an options memo for all the relevant stakeholders regarding next steps for legal shark conservation in the country. I'll be in Panama from March 15th to 25th with these stakeholders, so we're hoping to have some important discussions around that time regarding shark conservation. And then in addition to talking about the legal aspect, we want to discuss what data gaps currently exist that we may need to fill before proposing any new laws. And then also, as I mentioned, we're hoping to work on showing the connectivity between Panama and the rest of the Eastern Tropical Pacific through data, and work with the Minister of the Environment in Ecuador on that proposal for including rights of nature in the marine corridor. And I think that's it from me. I just wanted to again thank Earth Law Center so much for your consistent work in this movement, and for taking the time to collaborate and train me. Being just a scientist, it's been so amazing to work with you guys and learn more about the law side of conservation. So thank you so much.